Alright, so I wanted to make a video about solving inequalities. So I know that you recently had an assignment about this, and I'm not sure how much it sunk in and how well we did, so I just wanted to talk about it again. And in the previous activity, we're supposed to sort things based on what kind of symbol they'd have, and if it'd be opened or closed, and directions, but based off just the inequality solution. And here we have some more complicated things, but both of these will have the same kind of circle. Can think about what kind of circle that is on the graph. So because they're both strictly greater in this case and less in this case, but not there's no equal to, these two will both be open circles. And it's kind of one of those things, as far as the circle goes, you can look and tell right away. So there's a worksheet that goes with this video, and I'm going to be doing mostly odd problems, except for I'll be doing 1 and 2, then I'll skip 3 and 4 because they're like 1 and 2, and then I'll do 5, but not 6, and 7, but not 8, and 9, but not 10. Okay, so that's what we're going to be working on. I'm just going to show you how to do them. So here is number 1. This is a very straightforward inequality. And the first thing I like to do is pretend that it's an equation because the steps are the same, and I don't actually change the symbol. I just leave it alone, but I pretend. So if it was an equal sign, I'd subtract 7 from both sides. And I'd end up with 10v is greater than 90. Because 97 minus 7 is 90. Then I'll divide both sides by 10. And I get v is greater than 9. So I am finished, because v is all alone and 9 is all alone. Now it's time to graph my inequality. And so as I said on the previous slide, it's going to be an open circle because it's strictly greater. And numbers that are bigger than 9, which side is that? So, well, 4 is smaller than 9, and 14 is bigger than 9. So I will draw my arrow towards 14. And that's all there is to that. Then number 2. Number 2 is a little harder than number 1 because it is an inequality. It has a fraction in it that tends to make us a little more afraid of the situation, which is silly. Or more apprehensive. Maybe afraid is not the right word, but we tend to not do as good of a job because we're worried about these. So I wanted to just talk about this one really quickly. But again, it's just going to be the same thing. First thing I'm going to do is subtract the 5 from the 7. And I'll get n over 2 is less than 2. And so the next question is, what does the fraction mean? So this fraction means divide by 2, or a number divided by 2. And so to undo that division, I'm going to multiply both sides by 2 to undo the division. They'll cross off over here, and I'll be left with n is less than 4. So again, we said open circle. And I need numbers that are smaller than 4. So remember, we're trying to make the inequality true. When we were in elementary school, we talked about how it was hungry. We maybe talked about an alligator. When I was in school, we talked about Pac-Man. And we draw a Pac-Man face on our inequality symbol. You know, haha, Pac-Man, he's hungry, he eats the biggest thing. We'd make sure he's eating the biggest thing. There's all sorts of goofy jokes about that. But the idea being that Pac-Man, being the hungry fellow he is going to eat the biggest thing. This time 4 is the biggest thing. So we know numbers that are smaller than 4 to be shaded. So 2 is smaller than 4, but 12 is not. So I'm going to go towards the 2. And that is how I do those. So go ahead and pause the video now and try problems. Make sure you record these 2, and also try problems 3 and 4. And then when you're ready, start the video again because I'll be on number 5. So number 5 says, this one's a bit more complicated. Now, I know it looks the same, and it really does, except for this weird thing that I'll explain as we go. So the first thing I'm going to do is rewrite it down here. Negative 7v plus 3 is less than negative 53. And I'm going to go ahead and subtract the 3 from both sides. And I'll get negative 7v is less than negative 56. So far so good. I'm going to then go ahead and divide. Negative 7v, and so v and 8 are my answers. Now, you'll notice I did not write the symbol down. And you may or may not remember having done this before. Hey! Sorry about that small outburst. It's not the greatest thing to be making these videos while at home. But anyway, so this is a little weird. So I'm going to go ahead. It's going to be an open circle because of 8 is strictly less than. And then I want to think about it. So if I left the symbol alone, I'd have this, which would be numbers smaller than 8, like 4. So 4 is an answer to this bottom inequality because 4 is smaller than 8. Now let's see about the original. Is 4 an answer to the original? What is negative 7 times 4? Well, that's negative 28 plus 3, which is negative 25. Is negative 25 less than negative 53? When we think about negative numbers and we know that they work in a different direction, negative 25 is closer to 0 than negative 53 is. Therefore, negative 25 is larger. And so negative 25 is larger than negative 53. And so this symbol actually needs to be going the other way. And this is probably the thing about inequalities that is the most frustrating and confusing part, is switching the sign. So I do need to switch the sign. Okay, and signs get switched when only one of two things occurs. Either I multiply by a negative number, or I divide by a negative number. Signs do not get switched if I add or subtract negative numbers. They didn't get switched when I minus 3. They got switched here when I divided by negative 7. So keep that in mind as you go forward. Let's try another problem. And we're going to try number 6. Number 6 also has the weird sign switching. I don't think I put any more sign switching on here, but I could have. I'm tricky like that. All right. And so then I have this one. But just kidding. This one sign switches. What was I thinking? So I've got this k and negative 8k. So this is a little more complicated. I have to actually combine like terms first before I do anything else. So I'm going to put k and negative 8k together. And so k minus 8k is negative 7k, because this is 1k, minus 6. So I'm going to add 6 to negative 20. Negative 7k is less than or equal to negative 14. Then I'm going to divide by negative 7. And I will get k and 2. And this is what I like to think about with the whole sign switching, because again, the sign's going to switch on this one, is how do the symbols change? So think about this. This is a positive 6, that's a positive 6. When I add these together, I get a negative, because a negative plus a positive retains the sign of the bigger number. And I know that's a little confusing, but see how the sign over here really didn't change? My only sign changing happened from adding to, and that's a, inverse sign thing. But here, when I divided, everything switched to what I like to think of like as the mirror image. And so the mirror image of 2 is negative 2 if the mirror was at 0, for example. Maybe I'd do it this way, like negative 2, the mirror image. And what's the mirror image of this symbol and this symbol? So that's where we're switching. Think about equal. What's the mirror image of equal? It's equal. So we never noticed this when we had equal signs. Those are kind of some of the things I tell myself. This one was less than or equal to, so now it'll be greater than or equal to. This is our first example of one that is greater with an equal sign, which means it's filled in. And I'm going to go towards the numbers that are bigger than 2. So in other words, I'm saying that 5 is an answer to this problem. Let's use 5 to make sure it's an answer to the original. And also 0 is not. Let's just check 0 really fast. 0, 0. Negative 6 is smaller than negative 20. Oh, that's not true. Negative 6 is bigger than negative 20. Let's go ahead and try, I said 5. So 5 minus 6 minus 5 times 8, which is 40. And 5 minus 6 is negative 1 minus 40 is negative 41, which is indeed smaller than negative 20. So yes, negative 6 is an answer. And positive 5 is an answer, and so this is my answer. That's my graph. Okay, one more problem, number 9. Now this one's a little trickier because we've got the parentheses. We're just going to go ahead and distribute. You actually have two choices. I can distribute first, which is what we would normally do, but I'm going to do this one a little tricky because I notice the numbers are really big, and when I distribute, I get really even bigger numbers, and I really don't want to divide by 42. And so since I know that 6 times 7 is 42, and that's what I'll end up dividing by, I'd rather avoid it. So I'm actually going to go ahead and divide by 6 first. And I get 7k plus 8 is less than 36. You can double check that for me on a calculator. But 216 is 6 cubed, so I'm pretty sure I'm right. Then we're going to go ahead and subtract 8 from 36. 7k is less than. 36 minus 8 is 28. Divide by 7. And k is less than 4. So 4 is our answer. There was no weird switching that happened anywhere. No negative signs to be seen, so no worries. K is less than 4, so that means 0 would be an answer. If I plug 0 in, 6 times 8 is 48, which is less than 216. So yep, that looks good. And that means that 10 is not an answer, so think about that. 18 times 6 is bigger than 216. Wait, oh, 10. So that'd be 70. Just kidding, because that didn't make any sense. 78 times 6, bigger than 216. Absolutely. Okay. So those are the answers, and that's what we're trying to do here. So go ahead and complete the 5 problems I didn't demonstrate. Make sure you do the 5 that I did. And we'll have one more little exercise after this to check your understanding.